بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. Alhamdulillah, we have tawfiq to continue our study of Kashf al-Murad. From today, we start discussion about al-Alam, followed by a'wad. Our theologians discuss about the issue of Alam, which means pains, sometimes because they want to reply to al-Thanawiyya. Thanawiyya were people who were believing in two responsibles, two creators, God for good things and Ahriman for bad things. So in order to refute this idea, our theologians had to explain how everything is an action of God. Because we believe in Tawhid Af'ali. Everything is an action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even things that might not be pleasant for us, it's an action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But then they explain how something unpleasant can happen and whether, bad things are absolute or relative, are they real or unreal? Lots of discussions are here. Also, they discuss about this issue when they discuss about Qa'idiyya Lutf, because there is also a connection between this issue and Qa'idiyya Lutf. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things which can help us, which are muqarrib ila ta'ah wa muba'id an al-ma'siyah, then how comes that there are sometimes problems? And if these problems are not possible to avoid, they are inevitable, how he would compensate for that? And that is the issue of a'wad, which is plural for evad. Evad means something that you get in return. So in Ilmul Kalam, they have developed very good discussion about these issues. So now from today, we want to discuss the issue of alam, and then inshallah after that the issue of a'wad and compensations. Haji Rahmatullah alayh has a very brief statement as usual, and it is right at the beginning of the المسألة الثالثة عشرة في الألم ووجه حسنه. This is the problem or issue number 13, في الألم, on pain, and وجه حسنه, why pain is good. If there's a pain which is good, why it is good. Wajh and jaha is something that we have discussed many times. قال وبعض الألم قبيح يصدر منا خاصة. Some kind of pain means some kind of causing pain. When he says alam, means causing alam. Some type of it is qabih, is bad. This type never is issued from and by God. This is minna, yasduru minna khasatan. For example, I may unjustly beat someone, for example. I may, I don't know, take his property. This causes suffering and pain, and this is not acceptable. This is قبيح. بعض الألم قبيح يصدر منا خاصة. This is opposite to the next one, which is coming from us and Allah. When we say منا خاصة, you should read what comes later to understand what is opposite to this. وبعضه حسن يصدر منه تعالى ومنا. Some types of pain, means causing pain, is good, and this can happen from us and from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the good one. وحسنه. Now, when pain is good, when there is a justification for causing pain, it can be for one of these things, one of these reasons. إما لاستحقاقه. Sometimes a person is entitled to this pain, has done something that deserves suffering. For example, a criminal who is going to be punished. So he's mustahiq, he's entitled, he deserves this punishment. Or لاشتماله على النفع. Sometimes this pain is involving some benefit. For example, a teacher gives assignments and homework to students. This has some pain. This student now cannot go and sleep or play, but it's involving manfa'a, benefit. It's good for him. لاشتماله على النفع أو دفع الضرر. Maybe it's bringing manfa'a, maybe it's avoiding ضرر, loss, harm. For example, failing in the exam, getting good result is manfa'a, avoiding failure is avoiding harm. Or for example, doctor says to the patient that you don't eat this food, although maybe that person very much wants to eat that food, says this is going to create serious illness for you. الزائدين. Of course, this نفع, this benefit which comes after this pain, or that greater pain and harm which is stopped by this pain, they both should be greater than the pain that this person is going through. So we say, do this, or we do something to him that has some pain. Why? Because a greater benefit is going to come, not something equal or less. We cannot, for example, put someone into difficulty for a long time, because then, for example, for a few minutes, he's going to benefit from it, very superficial benefit, for example. So the manfa'a which comes, or the zarar, the harm which is going to be stopped, both of them should be zaidain, should be more than this alam that is going to be caused by us or by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لاشتماله على النفع أو دفع الضرر الزائدين. زائدين is مثنى, means نفع الزائد ودفع الضرر الزائد, means زائد على الألم. Oh, another possibility. So far we said استحقاقه 1, اشتماله على النفع أو اشتماله على دفع الضرر 2, which had 2 parts. The 2 itself had 2 parts. Number 3, أو لكونه عاديا. it is habitual. It's according to the ordinary and conventional courses of affairs. For example, someone is put into fire, or fire, comes to someone and burns him or house. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have stopped him being burnt, like what he did for Ibrahim. But if he wants to stop and interfere and intervene in everything and stops these ordinary courses of affairs, then wisdom will be lost. Because then people have to believe. Because everyone then would see that miracles are happening every day, every time, So there would be not big test. And also Allah has created a system. If needed, he would intervene, but not all the time. Like, for example, a manager. Suppose there is a very huge organization. The manager, if needed, can intervene in different levels and layers of that organization. But normally, because there's a system, he would not deal with the details or with other, layers. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a system, and this system, according to the general and normal procedures, may cause pain for someone. What is important is that he is going to compensate. There is awaz, but we should not expect him to intervene in every case. So, لكونه عاديا, عادي, not عادي. Sometimes people pronounce it عادي. Dal is not mushaddad. It comes from عادة. عادي is from عادة. It's habitual. أو على وجه الدفع, or it is for a stopping. It's for a stopping. So this is just that much that Khaja has said so far. Of course, he has later, after a page, something more. And it says, وَلَا بُدَّ فِي الْمُشْتَمِلِ عَلَى النَّفْعِ مِنَ اللُّطْفِ. The one which has benefit should also involve lutf. But we will see, inshallah, later. Allama rahmatullah alayhi now expands and explains the issue of alam. أقول في هذا الكلام مباحث. In this topic, there are issues. الأول في مناسبة هذا البحث وما بعده لما قبله. The first thing that we have to discuss is what is the relation between this topic and the next one, which is about a'waz, with the previous one, which was about lutf. How they suit and relate to the previous one. So, مناسبة هذا البحث الآن وما بعده, which comes المسألة الرابعة عشرة في الأعواز. How these two relate to ما قبله, the previous one, which was lutf. He explains, and we already explained, of course. اعلم أننا قد بينا وجوب الألطاف والمصالح. We explained that lutf is necessary. واجب على الله سبحانه وتعالى. والمصالح. Masalih means interests. Masalih can be worldly or religious. Al-masalihu wa hiya في الوجوب في وجوب بينا وجوب الألطاف والمصالح وهي ضربان. مصالح are two. Masalih في الدين. Allah would give us masalih, but what we mean by masalih? There are two types of masalih. Some interest, some maslaha is about religion. Some is about dunya. So religious and worldly. We mean by dunya أعني المنافع الدنيوية. Those benefits which are worldly are worldly interests. This is simple. But the religious side. وَمَصَالِحُ الدِّينِ. But those religious interests sometimes are not that straightforward. It's not that they are necessarily manfa'ah. Sometimes they can be madar. Sometimes there is a pain in them. Sometimes there is a sense of, losing. You have to fast. You have to go for example, I don't know, jihad when needed. You have to give zakat. Sometimes there is a pain, there is a suffering, there is a difficulty, there is kulfa. وَمَصَالِحُ الدِّينِ إِمَّا مَضَارٌ أَوْ مَنَافِعٌ. Those things which are interests of religion or in religion, they can be madar or manafi. Madar is plural for madarra, a kind of loss, but not loss in a bad sense. Means a loss for a greater benefit, of course. أو منافع, or benefits. والمضار, for example, things that can happen in religion, and religion has to explain, and our theology has to explain. منها آلام وأمراض. For example, there are pains, there are illnesses. وغيرها كالآجال, people die. This is something that we have to explain, because death is somehow a loss for the person and a loss for the people who are remaining. Walghala, sometimes there is, famine, drought, and things become very rare and expensive. Shortage of food and expensive, prices go high. Walmanafi, but the benefits like as-sihha, health, was-sa'a fi rizq, when we have abundance of rizq. War-rukhas, when things are permitted, there is permission, there is no obligation, or when things are abundant. فلأجل هذا بحث المصنف رحمه الله عقيب اللطف عن هذه الأشياء. Because of these masalih are related to lutf, and these masalih can sometimes involve pain and suffering and loss, Khaja rahmatullah alayh has discussed it here. After, aqib means after the discussion about lutf. وَلَمَّا كَانَتِ الْآلَامِ تَسْتَلْزِمُ الْأَعْوَاضِ وَجَبَ الْبَحْثُ عَنْهَا أَيْضًا. And since pains require compensation, return, then we have to discuss that as well. Wajab al-bahs, it's necessary to. So first, why we discuss about alam, we explain. Why we discuss about a'waz, because these alam require compensation. So this is the first thing that we had to discuss, and Allah explained for us what is the reason for putting this discussion right here after lutf. Al-Bahthu Sani, the second thing that we have to discuss is اختلف الناس في قبح الألم وحسنه. People, which of course means أصحاب الملل والنحل, people of different sects and denominations, theologians, they differed about whether alam is good or bad, or there are some types which are good, some types not. There are differences of opinion. اختلف الناس في قبح الألم وحسنه. People means people of Kalam, they have differed on badness and goodness of pain. فذهبت الثانوية. Thanawiyya, those who believe in two lords, two sources, one source for goodness, one source for bad, they said all pains are bad, therefore there is another lord for them. We cannot attribute them to God. وذهبت المجبرة إلى حسن جميعها من الله. Those who are مجبرة, those who believe in jab and predestination, they say everything that happens and every pain is good. وذهبت البكرية وأهل التناسخ والعدلية إلى حسن بعضها وقبح الباقي. These three groups of people, they have made distinction. Neither they said alam is bad always, nor they said alam is good always. They have the opinion that some types of alam is good, some are bad. For example, as I said, I beat someone who is innocent. Certainly this is bad. I cannot say all is good. Bikriya are the people that follow a person that was living in the time of early Mu'tazilite with Wasil ibn Ata. And I found a very good explanation of this by Ayatollah Ja'far Subhani. Let me find it for you. Yes, because I saw some people on internet, they say wrong things about Bakriya. For example, in Wikipedia about Bakriya says, the Shia, related to the first caliph, etc. No, these are Ashabu Bakr ibn or Bakr ibn Ziyad, who was contemporary to Wasil ibn Ata. Wasil ibn Ata died in the year 130. He was living from 80 to 130 after Hijrah. So Bakr ibn Ziyad was contemporary to Wasil ibn Ata and Safwan ibn Jahm, who died in 128. So followers of him are called Bakriya. This is what Allama means here. And these people had the idea, which is to distinguish between some alam which are good and some which are bad. Ahlul Tanasukh, those who believe in reincarnation, are people who say that we come to this world and do good things or bad things, and then if we have done bad things, we come again to this world and we would suffer because of the bad things we did in the first life. Adliya, people of justice, are Shia and Mu'tazilites. So these three groups of people, they all believe in distinction. They don't say all alam are good or all alam are bad. ذهبت البكرية, Bakr or Bak, وأهل التناسخ والعدلية إلى حسن بعضها وقبح الباقي. These three groups have said some of them are good. Of course, which one are good, which one are bad, which ones are good, they may differ. It's not that they agree on the details, but they agree on a distinction to be made. So this is the second issue, that People have different opinions. The third issue that we have to discuss, في علة الحسن. If alam is sometimes hasan, why that's the case? You remember the title was في الألم ووجه حسنه. And Khaja said وحسنه إما لاستحقاقه أو لاشتماله على النفع أو دفع الضرر الزائدين أو لكونه عاديا أو على وجه الدفع. So the third thing that we have to discuss is when alam becomes good. Why sometimes alam is good? It's not that always good. Sometimes good. When? البحث الثالث في علة الحسن means في علة حسن الألم. اختلف القائلون بحسن بعض الألم في وجه الحسن. Those who have said that some pains and sufferings are good. These three groups, أهل التناسخ, بكرية or بكرية, and عدلية, they said some alam are good. Then they have different opinions about when, why some pain are good, some pains are good. فقال أهل التناسخ, those who believe in reincarnation, they say إن علة الحسن هي الاستحقاق لا غير. The only reason that pain and suffering are good is because this person has lived already a life, and based on what he or she has done, he deserved or she deserves, is mustahiq for this suffering. Now, in the second life, in another human body, or maybe sometimes goes to an animal body, there are different types of tanasukh. Some people say they go back to a human body, some say they go to an animal body, some people say even they go to plants and like trees. There's faskh, there's maskh, there's raskh. There are three types. So depending on what the second life they have, they're going to suffer, but they are mustahiq. They are entitled, or they deserve this. لأن النفوس البشرية إذا كانت في أبدان قبل هذه الأبدان وفعلت ذنوبا استحقت الألم عليها. So they say because when human souls were in bodies before these bodies, and they committed sins, and because of those sins they are entitled for pain, then this is good. Istihqaq. The only reason for goodness of pain is istihqaq. Bakriya also have accepted the same idea. هذا أيضا قول البكرية. They also said the same thing. So in this issue, they have the same idea like Ahlul Tanasukh. Although Ahlul Tanasukh, they are not Muslims, but these Bakriya are Muslims. But let's go to the Adliyah, to the Shiites and Mu'tazilites. وقالت المعتزلة إنه يحسن عند شروط. They said it is good sometimes. When some of these conditions are there, it is good. If none of these conditions are there, it's not good. One is أن يكون مستحقا. This alam is mustahaq. The person is mustahiq. Alam is mustahaq. If a person has done something that because of that deserves pain, punishment, for example, not in the form of another life before this life, but in the same life has done something wrong and now has to see the consequence. Someone was not careful, for example, in driving and has accident, now has to pay for repair of the car. But he was careless, then this is istihqaq. Number 2, ثانيها, the second condition is أن يكون فيها نفع عظيم يوفى عليها. There is a great benefit that would be given. يوفى or يوفى. إنما يوفى الصابرون. It comes from wafa, means to be given in full, to be given completely, to be given something in return. So if this person is not mustahaq, but we are going to receive something great, much better than that pain, then of course we would be also pleased. Therefore, in some cases they say, and maybe inshallah if I get chance I will read for you from another book by Allama Helli, that Nahj al-Murstashideen. He says that if these people are asked that we are going to give you such compensation, are you happy? They would say yes. This is why on the Day of Judgment, when people see what Allah gives them for their pain and suffering in dunya, Hadith says that they would wish that they were made into pieces by scissors in dunya. Right now, because we don't know how much reward we are going to receive for our pain and suffering, we may complain. But if we know, we would thank. Sabra shakirin. So in the discussion about suffering and pain, we have discussed these issues. So, أن يكون فيها نفع عظيم يوفى. There would be something great that would be given in response or in return for these alam. If you want to also mention worthy examples, like for example, this student is suffering for doing homework and assignments, going every day to school, waking up early in the morning, spending a few hours in the school, but he's going to get greater benefit. Or for example, a person goes to become a sportman, a sportwoman. They do lots of training and exercises, but they are happy because there's great benefit. وثالثها أن يكون فيها دفع ضرر أعظم منها. Sometimes it's not جلب النفع, it's دفع الضرر. So in this alam, in these pains, there is دفع ضرر, is to stop and repel a harm and loss which is greater. So for example, if this pain is 50 degree, we can stop then 100 degree pain or loss or harm to come. So we will be ourselves happy to receive 50% and not 100% of pain. رابعها, the fourth condition in which pain can be permissible or acceptable. أن يكون مفعولا على مجرى العادة. Something that is done according to the ordinary course of affairs. This is ada. This is the regular norm. كما يفعله الله تعالى بالحي إذا ألقيناه في النار. When there is a living person and we human beings throw this person into fire, or an animal who is alive, we put into fire. Okay, there is a pain for this person. And the laws of this world allow this person to be burnt. There's a pain. But why Allah doesn't stop this pain? Because this is the norm of this world, that fire is burning. Allah can stop fire burning. But then this becomes a miracle. And we cannot have miracles, every day, every time, for every case. So what happens is, normally Allah lets these things happen according to the norms. Of course, with dua, with sadaqah, with tawassul. Many times we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's support and interference. But even these things have norms. And even these things sometimes may not work. There's no guarantee. Because if they always work, then people may see that, oh, religious people never suffer. And this becomes a force for them to become religious. Allah doesn't want people to be forced to become religious. Although He wants them to be religious, but He wants them to have an area of, you can say darkness, or you can say, some people call it epistemological gap. Things should be not so clear, so obvious that no one can deny. There must be a chance for test. Otherwise, Allah could send, angels every day, to wake up people, for salat and say salat. Of course, then everyone becomes a believer and becomes, a person who prays. But this is not the norm. This is not the wise plan of Allah. So the fourth condition is أن يكون مفعولا على مجرى العادة كما يفعله الله تعالى بالحي إذا ألقيناه في النار. When we throw something which is living, like a human being or animal, into fire, then عادة is that fire would burn. وخامسها أن يكون مفعولا على سبيل الدفع. If you remember, Khaja said, أو لكونه عاديا أو على وجه الدفع. To stop. What does it mean to stop? It means to stop another person from killing you, harming you. It means to defend, دفع, دفع and دفع. دفع comes from دفع. أن يكون مفعولا على سبيل الدفع عن النفس. لولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع, etc. دفع, دفاع, يدافع, إن الله يدافع عن, means to stop, to defend. So it is done على سبيل الدفع, in the way of stopping, defending. عن النفس, دفاع عن النفس, to defend yourself, means you don't let harm come to you. You don't let harm come to you. كما إذا ألمنا, not ألمنا. ألمنا means causes pain to us. ألمنا means we cause pain. من يقصد قتلنا. There is a person who wants to kill us. We have to stop him, and this can be painful. Maybe we have to fight, maybe we have to sometimes beat him, maybe sometimes you have to use a weapon to defend yourself, can cause injury, etc. in the other person. أَلَمْنَا مَنْ يَقْصِدُ قَتْلًا. We may cause pain to someone who wants to kill us. This is دفاع عن النفس. This is self-defense. This is to defend yourself. لأننا متى علمنا اشتمال الألم على أحد هذه الوجوه حكمنا بحسنه قطعا. As Mu'tazilites have said, and also Shia have said, and Adliya in general, if pain involves one of these things, then it is good. Mata alimna, whenever we know that alam is involving one of these wujuh, one of these reasons, hakamna bihusnihi qat'an. We say definitely this is good. So we discussed three things. What's the relation between this discussion and the next one with the previous one about what? We discussed that there are different opinions. Some say alam are always good, some say alam are always bad, some have made distinction. And the third discussion, which was the most important one, was when alam can be justified, when they can be good and accepted. Those who believe in tanasukh and bikriyah, they say there is only one reason, and that is istihqaq. If you have lived in your previous life in a sinful way, in a criminal way, now you deserve pain and punishment. So for them, any person who is suffering today is actually deserving that, deserve this punishment, this pain. And this way of looking at people who suffer, is not very good, because then people think, okay, why I should help them, and they put blame on them, and they themselves also become frustrated. There's no way that we can get rid of what we have done in another life. There are lots of problems with this, but the people of justice, Adliya, Shia and Mu'tazilah, they say istihqaq is one reason. Of course, not in the way that they say another life, but in the same life. But there can be many other things. لاشتماله على نفع أعظم, or for example, لاشتماله على دفع الضرر, or for example, عاديا, the regular norm is this, or دفع for defense. Pain can be good. Causing pain to others can be good. Then Khaja Rahmatullah Alayh has something extra, but I would love to share with you a passage from Allama Rahmatullah Alayh in another book, which I found it very useful because it's the same author, Allama Rahmatullah Alayh, and he has expanded, so it helps us to understand what he says here. In Hausa, many times, we use this method, that if a person has different books, we try to see what he has said in different books and compare them. And sometimes, actually, it's a very good commentary. Sometimes they have new things, but sometimes it's the same thing, they have explained it with more details or in different wording, so it helps us to understand. So, one of the books by Allama Rahmatullah Alayh is Nahjul Mustarshidin. And Fazil Miqdad Rahmatullah Alayh has commentary on this. Those of you that we studied together, Baba Hadi Ashar, you remember Baba Hadi Ashar was by Allama and commentary of Fazil Miqdad. This is also similar. So in this book, which is available also online, and inshallah, I can also share with you the link later. It says, البحث الثالث تحقيق حول مسألة الآلام. It is a discussion about pains. قال. Now قال is Allama Hilli, because Martin here is Allama Hilli, and أقوله is Fazil Miqdad, like Baba Hadi Ashar. البحث الثالث في الألم وهو الضربان قبيح وحسن. Right away he says there are two types of alam. Not always good, not always bad. There is good alam and bad alam. فَالْقَبِيحُ مِنْ فِعْلِنَا خَاصَّةً. Qabih is only possible from us. Allah never causes pain which is qabih. وَالْعِوَزُ فِيهِ عَلَيْنَا. If we do cause bad pain, we should compensate. We should make that person happy with us. وَالْحَسَنُ إِمَّا مِنْ فِعْلِنَا وَإِمَّا مِنْ فِعْلِهِ تعالى. Hasan can be from us or from Allah. And look, here he has some good examples. These are very helpful. مِنْ فِعْلِنَا, if this حسن الألم is from us, مع الإباحة أو مع ندبه أو مع وجوبه. There are three options. Sometimes this action of us is mubah, كذبح الحيوان. We slaughter an animal. This animal is suffering, but there is a compensation for this animal. Allah will compensate that animal. We will explain it. أو مع ندبه كالأضحية. Sometimes it's mustahab. It's not normal slaughtering for food. It's qurbani. Qurbani is mustahab. أو مع وجوبه كالهدية. Sometimes it's wajib, like hadiyah. When you go for hajj, you have, as if you go for example, hajj tamattu, you have one of the responsibilities or one of the taklif or obligations of hajj is hadiyah, to a slaughter. That is not mustahab, that is not mubah, that is wajib. Otherwise, you have problem with your hajj. So we are causing this pain. So it's our action, min fi'lina. But وَالْعِوَزُ فِي ذَلِكَ كُلِّهِ عَلَى اللَّهِ تَعَالَى. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would compensate anything that we have been given permission or recommendation or obligation to do. For all of them, He would compensate. وَإِمَّا مِنْ فِعْلِهِ تَعَالَى. Or it is from His action. Hasan. Qabih is only from us. Al-Alam al-Hasan, either from us, ma ibaha or nad or wujub, or min fi'lihi ta'ala. Then he says, this one which is from Allah's action, imma ma'al istihqaq, either it's because the person deserves this, kal iqab, so like a sinful person, criminal who deserves pain. Aw ibtida'an. No, sometimes ibtida, it's not istihqaq, ibtida'an means without previous reason. It's kind of initiative. Like what? كالآلام المبتدعة في الدنيا. Some pains that happen in dunya, إما للمكلف أو لغيره كالأطفال. Sometimes, for example, you are mukallaf, you get an illness, but not because you are to be punished. And sometimes even you are not mukallaf, a child gets ill. It's a pain. So all these types of pain that can happen, if it is from Allah or from us but we have permission, he would compensate. Of course, I would like to add that even if we don't have permission and we wrongly cause pain, it is true that, as he said, we have to give evaz and compensate, but he also still would compensate. This is amazing. A person has, God forbid, made you blind. That person is responsible. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also going to compensate. How much that person can compensate? But Allah is going to compensate. He would not say, this is not that, I have done to you. This is not what I have permitted, and that person is responsible. No. Whatever happens to you in this world, that you have not caused it to yourself, whether it's by nature, whether it is by accident, whether it's by careless people, whether it's by unjust people, he would compensate you. Even I believe that if you have caused it to yourself, but then you repent and you try to take from that point on right decision, make right decision, he would compensate. For example, I didn't make proper inquiry about marriage and married, or my child married to someone, and I didn't make proper inquiry. Okay, I am responsible. I have to accept responsibility. I have to admit. I have to ask for tawbah, istighfar. But it's not end of this. If now that I am admitting my mistake and I repent, from this point on, I am patient and act as Allah wants me. Even for this suffering, Allah is going to compensate. This is the generosity and kindness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So very much a'waz come from him, and there's little that we can do to compensate. Then Allama Hilli rahmatullah alayh says ووجه حسنه. The reason that alam can be good, al-iwazu zaid, is the extra additional compensation, not just equal. Because what is the reason I give you a pain and equal to that, then I, for example, make you happy or give you a pleasure? Equal. No, should be more. Behayth, this is what I quoted before, it's very beautiful. Behayth, this must be, this difference, this additional must be that much. بحيث يختاره المكلف مع الألم لو أرض عليه. If mukallaf is given the choice, they say, look, this is the pain and this is what you will get in return, he would choose it. There must be a big difference, big addition. So العوض الزائد بحيث يختاره المكلف مع الألم لو أرض عليه واللطف. العوض واللطف. Lutf also must be there. معا. Also, inshallah, next week when we read Khaja, Khaja says ولا بد في المشتمل على النفع من اللطف. In Tajrid also Khaja says that naf plus lutf. Here Allah says this is also imma lil muta'allim aw li ghayrih. This lutf either is for the person who is suffering or for other people. There is some benefit for other people. فبالعوض الزائد يخرج عن الظلم. Because we are giving additional return, this would not be zulm. And because there is a lutf, there is a benefit in hidayah, then it's not abath, it's not happening in vain. Okay, I think it's enough for today. And inshallah, we continue this discussion, bi'iznillah, next week. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.